Good evening and welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Joining is the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman, as at least my second favorite co-host. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the power and beliefs. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Ninja, what's going on, my friend? Cheers to you. Hopefully, I figured out some of these sound issues. You know, our favorite moonshiner, we'll say, Stony, out there. Normally, he picks it up. We'll see if he winds up joining in because he's a pretty good, like, hey, your sound sucks, your sound's good, whatever. I think I figured it out. Who knows? If not, eventually, when I get around to post-production and reposting some things and some clips, you know, I'll take care of it from there. But, hey, if not, whatever. I do this mainly, well, the chit-chat with my friends like you. So, I know you're digging, yeah, I know you're digging this vest right now. You know, it's really funny. The majority of my wardrobe, because, I mean, I'm all about the French cuffs. The majority of my shirts are blue and purple. And so, well, I've got a bunch of, you know, different shades in between there, right? So you can't go to blue to purple without going through some different pinks, which I got plenty of that too. But what's funny is when people would ask me, well, what's your favorite color? A lot of time, you know, I used to say, oh, it's red, it's red, it's red. And then someone asked me the other day, I said, you know, I'd like to say it's red. Except when I go to look at my wardrobe, the majority of my wardrobe is purple. Right? Even though I got pinks and blues, I've got one red shirt. One. So, I may like what the color red is, but I really go, well then, but based upon the data, it's purple. And I do like purple. It is the color of royalty. Yeah. I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you, like gunmetal gray, like what? I love like gunmetal gray. I think it looks looks super sharp. It does. It's like Kia's Stinger has a gunmetal gray color, and I'm like, every time I look at that car, I'm like, that car is badass looking. Yeah. Yeah, I can't really do like a peach like color. I look at myself and I've got a couple of them shirts like that, and I'm like, well, I had a couple of shirts like that. I'm like, That's just getting donated. And like one of them even had the tag on it. I bought it because I mean it was a good price, so I just bought it. Like, oh, all right. But I put it on, and I'm like, I look like I'm about ready to vomit in it. Like it's just like it does not produce that vibe. You know, and while I like green, I have like green's just not a color that I enjoy. I like to surround myself, and you know, it's funny when we talk about those things. So, color of Orchid, its colors are purple and gray. When we go to the distillery with Dragon's Mouth, it's purple and gold. And so it's colors that I tend to grow. And there's also, I mean, a lot of people they're like, oh, you need to do black and red with the distillery. I'm like, no. There's a science behind the colors. Purple represents creativity, and black doesn't. Neither does red. Not that there's anything wrong with those. Like, it depends on what you want your colors to represent, but because black represents stability from the science of it in terms of what people believe. But you know, when you think about it, the colors, the companies that are primarily colored purple, T-Mobile, Yahoo, right? They're, at least at one point in time, Yahoo was considered creative. T-Mobile, I don't think anyone would say that they're not creative. I mean, they do some unique things. But the ones that are gray, silver, Apple, there's a piece to it. It's you know, that sleekness. You know, there's a lot of it. Yeah, and hey, I look at the colors and I go, what do I want to represent? And you can play with the shades, and you know, I've got a feel a pretty unique colors of purple and gray and all of them. And hey, it's you want a contrast regardless. Hmm. Right, right. That's someone saying they could hear you initially, but they say, I can, but there's been a couple of people post again that they could hear you initially, and now you're like muted. But you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a sound blaster. They used to be able to. We'll find out. We'll see what happens. Uh, Everything. I mean, all. I mean, I've got so many pairs of shoes. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, but I buy it when it's a good deal, and I may not wear it for a long time because I mean, this is the great part about men's fashion in a way, and that is there's only so many ways you could do a sport coat and suit, black, blue, and gray. Pinstripes may change. Maybe at a certain times you got double-breasted, single-breasted. Well, single-breasted never goes out of style. And I just have black and brown shoes. I sometimes I wear black, sometimes I wear brown. It just really depends on. I have a huge issue for myself personally. If you're wearing a blue suit or blue slacks, don't wear black shoes. It's got to be brown shoes to me. It has to be brown shoes. I just I just can't do it. It's got to be brown. Um, yep. And that's also why I prefer to wear more grays from a suit perspective because I can wear black or brown. Doesn't matter. But if you're wearing a black suit, it also has to be black shoes. And so I just go, well, I kind of double down on my brown shoes because I have a lot of blue suits and a lot of gray suits. And so I go, well, my black shoes basically only get worn when I wear black suits. So, or if I'm wearing jeans. If I wear jeans, I do tend to wear more black shoes when it's jeans. So, everyone's saying you're still muted. I hear you fine too. I definitely like Clark shoes. Yes, I have several tuxedos. Oh, you're just like really low. Okay. Yes, I have several tuxedos. It's me playing myself back.
Yeah, I can hear the playback. I'm a half a step away from getting black tie dinner tux, and I'm half a step past that of getting white tie with tails.
White tie with tails. Not sure how I feel about that part. White tail?
No. Black tux, but white vest, white bow tie.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Well, it's required. It's not fine.
Required with what?
The one launch I did I think petition, remember, I'm talking about Freemasonry, is what's called a traditional observant launch.
All right.
And for their meetings, they require officers to wear white tie with tails. Members or visitors have to be in dark suit or dinner tux.
But with white vest and white bow tie.
For officers, yes.
Do they know that goes against the James Bond rules of a tuxedo?
It's a secret society, not spies. I know there's not a big
Interesting. All right. Well, just troubleshooting on the fly. Hey, all this stuff. We'll disconnect all this shit. We'll see what happens. Watch this. Bam, bam. People are gonna get irritated. That's cool.
I see my
Add to stream. Start cam. Let's see if that does anything.
microphone check.
I actually, let's see. I mean, maybe it could even be StreamYard. All right, go ahead. Oh, that is the reason. Bam.
Oh,
How about
there you go.
now?
That's right. If only we were technologists.
Yeah, I think I just saw it. For whatever reason, it switched off the microphone from the Sound Blaster. In this particular case, it appears to be a StreamYard issue, not a
Did it reset like your input device?
Yeah. It did. I have no idea why. So just check that. Now all of a sudden, I think we're good to go.
Well then.
Hey, it's a good thing we didn't really get into the topic. All people lost was a little bit. So
Who knows? That time, not my issue. Wasn't me. That's all on StreamYard at this point. But I'll take accountability. I'll take accountability. So,
Hey, at least we have loyal fans that point out where we could do better, and we receive that feedback.
Actually, I think they just like to point out when I fuck up. That's basically all it is. I don't know that they're loyal. I think that's just what they like. They're like, Dan never messes up, so when he does, I got to make sure I give him shit on it. So that's fine. I get it.
Hey, I realized at some point in the South, NASCAR is popular because people just want to watch the crashes. And then I realized the only reason NASCAR makes money is because those people pay for fucking tickets.
That's true.
I ain't hating.
Go
for it.
How many NASCAR races have you been to now that you're into?
If you had to guess, what do you think that number is?
0.
That would be a correct guess. Guess how many I've watched on TV? Fucking 0.
I foresee in the future you'll be at a NASCAR event.
Years and years and years ago, man, I went to a big time wrestling event at the Anaheim Civic Center. And I went just to, dude, this is on my list of things I want to do in my life. I want to see exactly what's going on. And I got to be honest, I had a good time.
Like wrestling, WWE?
Yeah, no, I watched Stone Cold Steve Austin fucking fight for the title against somebody, and then like a week later I happened to see it on TV and it was the exact same match but in a different city.
Oh, so then it definitely was the WWF at that point, because they pre-recorded their stuff, and it was so funny, which was what made the WCW so popular, because Eric Bischoff would come on and say, this is everything that has happened in the WWE. He trolled them so hard, and that's why everything went live.
Right. And so, it was just on my list, man. It was one of those things. Anaheim wasn't that far away from where I lived at that point. And you know what? I had a good time, man. It was interesting watching all the people in the crowd. And so, would I ever go to a NASCAR thing? I mean,
look,
I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to say no.
There's a reason why I'm Nostradamus. I just predict the future. Just like I predicted you being a chicken farmer, I also predict you'll be at a NASCAR event. I've foreseen it.
Oh, listen, man. We got the little group of chickens right here behind the house.
Yeah.
And now they're full size, man. And one of them, come to find out, absolutely is a rooster. And man, at 5:30 this morning when I got up and I was in here working, he was cock-a-doodle doing it. And I love it, man. I've grown to actually take this for what it's worth, man. I actually like listening to the roosters in the morning.
It doesn't surprise me.
Hey, man, what are you going to do? They're my little buddies, man. I like going over there and checking on them. I say, chicken, 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 come here, and they come over to me.
You're a food source.
And so are they.
Yeah, but they don't know that. They only know that you're a food source. Like, hey, I come over there, I might get some food.
I don't know, man. There's something really cool about watching little dinosaurs walk around. I'll tell you that. They're cool to sit there and watch.
No, I cannot argue against that. It is. I mean, all birds are related to dinosaurs. I mean, that is exactly what they evolved into. Whether it's the ostrich or the fucking penguin.
Well, in that book you and Carrie got as a joke is still on our bookshelf, man.
I didn't get that for you as a joke.
Yeah, I know, man. Listen, dude, I had a 3-egg omelet this morning. I rode hard this morning cycling, and I was really hungry afterwards. I had a 3-egg omelet, and guess what? I didn't pay for those eggs. It came out of those chickens. It was tasty.
I'm waiting for you to get some ostriches so we can get some ostrich eggs going on. Dude, have you seen, not like on camera, film, whatever, in live, in person, an ostrich egg?
Yes, I have.
They are huge.
They're large. And I'm telling you right now, man, I don't want to deal with birds that size.
Well,
they're mean as fuck.
Yeah,
I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, they definitely are. But those eggs are so tasty. But I could not I have never been able to complete an ostrich egg omelet.
Have you ever had ostrich meat?
Yeah.
That's good, man. For me, that's a nice balance between like turkey and pork.
Oh yeah, sure. But I mean
Yeah, I like.
that's not an issue. But like when we talk about it, like a 2 egg omelet, all right, no problem. Dude, those ostrich eggs, those are like 6 eggs, like 6 chicken eggs.
Yeah, they're large, dude. No, and the bird. Listen, man. The, Over at the main farm, we got this one rooster that he's the rooster, man. And when I go over there, it ain't too much of a problem. But every time Mrs. Pittman and Baby Pittman go over there, they have to take sticks. I'm not joking, man. This is every other day they go over there to get the eggs and take care of the chickens, and they have to take a stick with them. They keep it in the Jeep, and they got to club that fool because he comes rushing at him. He's doing his job. Hats off to him. But he's not small, man. If people haven't been around a rooster, they're not small animals, and they're mean. And this dude is extra mean.
Well, this gets into a lot of the other things that we've talked about, and I don't just limit this to young men, but also young women. We should all be absolute murderers and then learn how to control it. And
Yeah.
and that rooster is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You come around my flock and you gots to go.
Yeah, man. And so that's what, because now we're in a situation where, especially now we have this rooster that came up out of this set of eggs we hatched here. We have too many roosters, and so 2 roosters need to go. There's just too many roosters. A couple weeks ago, one of the other roosters got offed by the other roosters. There was a rooster fight, and we started. I mean, you got to rank order them. Who you keeping around? Well, I'll tell you who's at the top of my list to keep. That dude. Even though you got to hit him with a stick, he's doing his job, man. He's fulfilling his purpose and his nature as a rooster, which is to defend that farm from predators.
Yeah.
How can you not keep him? I don't care that you don't like him. I don't care that you got to hit him with a stick.
That's exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, and that's actually a good segue into my overall topic into this. So, the power of belief systems, and I don't mean belief in this case of like your faith, which, hey, there's a part of that. But I want to talk about this in that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in yourself, positive things are going to happen. Positive things will happen because you will position yourself in such a way that something positive is going to happen. And I don't mean being an optimist. I mean having that confidence that, hey, I know I can get this done. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to get it done. But if you say, there's no way I can do that, there's no way you're going to do it.
Yeah, man. If we had talked about this 5 years ago, I probably would have disagreed with you. And I'll tell you 2 things. One, the person that actually changed my mind about this is Mrs. Pittman. She really got keyed into this idea of positive self-talk before I did, before I became aware of it. And she challenged me to do, well, rightfully so, an experiment. And that experiment was every morning for a week, either give yourself a high five in the mirror, like when you're brushing your teeth and when you're drying off or shaving or whatever, right? But first thing in the morning, give yourself a high five or a thumbs up. It doesn't matter which. I'm more of a thumbs up person than I am a high five person. I feel awkward like high fiving myself. I feel good giving myself a thumbs up in the mirror. And, kind of keep track of how you feel and how your day is from your perception. And then we did that. And then we took a week after that to observe people out in the world that are close to us and how they talk about themselves in social situations. And I'm telling you, man, no bullshit. There is a stark difference, at least in my anecdotal observation, between people that practice some form of, let's call it, positive self-talk or positive self-affirmation, and people that practice negative self-talk or negative self-affirmation. There is a distinct difference.
Absolutely. And this is where I get into that whole self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
It's also portrayed upon how you view other people you interact with.
Yep.
If you believe that person is a dumbass, you will do everything you can in many ways to make sure that person is always viewed as a dumbass when you're around. And I've done this experiment as well. One, assume positive intent. I believe the minority of people are bad people. And it's an overwhelming majority are good people. Sometimes it's just that they haven't had anyone that actually has believed in them. And so therefore they've never figured out how to believe in themselves. And so those people that you might go, that person's an idiot, that person's a dumbass. Well, you keep saying that. Guess what? Everything they do, you're going to find a way to make sure you have fulfilled that prophecy of them being a dumbass, an idiot, whatever. Look at what they can do. Find something they can do. And then believe that they can do it. And then watch how you wind up responding. You will respond in such a way, if you actually believe it, no different than your thumbs up, high five, you will find a way to actually help them fulfill that prophecy.
Yeah, I've been for several years now doing this daily Jason the Experience thing, right? And recently, the last couple of weeks, I've been doing these quotes from the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And one of the quotes I just did last week was, "Faith without deeds is meaningless."
Absolutely.
And the way I took that,
Amen.
the way I took that was, yeah, right. The way I took that was actually, it's about faith in yourself first and foremost, before anything else. It's your faith in yourself to fulfill a duty which requires action or embodiment out into the world. And that's the energy you're putting out, which, in some sense, if you remember a number of years ago, that book came out, and then a documentary / movie called The Secret. And before that, it was the Celestine Prophecy. That's really all they were peddling. They were just doing it like in a self-help way. I think what we're talking about is more of like a folk psychological or a mentoring or a leadership context, which is you have to believe in yourself first and foremost. And you have to believe that the people around you, for better or worse, intend to do good. They want to do good. It's just for some reason, which you don't know because you don't know, they're not doing it. And I really think, man, in a really sincere way, that for those that, this goes back to prior conversations we've had on the show, when we're talking about why do we help others, or how do we align ourselves with our destiny or our goals. I think part of our obligation at the level we're at in our life is to find ways to alleviate that suffering enough that people can raise themselves up. Whether that's by pointing something out and aiding in a reformation, or providing some form of mentorship, or just having this conversation, really.
So, do you think it is our obligation to raise people up?
Yes, absolutely. I took an obligation to do it.
Well, and what was your rationale for choosing to do that?
Well, that's a great question.
I know. I asked it.
The rationale for that is I wanted to become better for myself. And in doing so...
Do you believe that's selfish?
What's that?
Do you believe that is selfish? You wanting to do something to better yourself?
Of course it's selfish.
Do you think that's a problem?
No, not at all.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And when I break this down, and I'll let you get back to your thought. It's self-care. It's the same reason why they say when you're on a plane, in the event that you need oxygen, put it on yourself first. You have to be selfish in order to be able to help someone else. Now,
that's right.
There are those that are, hey, they're bad people and they're going to be selfish and then they're going to abuse that. And then there are the good people.
Hmm. Right. No, and so I took that obligation on my own free will to explore the possibility of making myself better. And in doing that, part of that obligation transfers into, um, and I'll quote, all humanity has an equal claim upon your kind offices. That's an obligation. So as much as I raise myself up in doing so, the obligation that's adjacent to that and tightly coupled to it is that I help other people around me
So
unconditionally.
expand upon your aspect that we all have equal claim.
Yeah. Now this is an interesting segue, right? My interpretation of that, which actually to contextualize it, is a charge that's given to us. And so this actually comes from Freemasonry, which is one of the beautiful things I love about Freemasonry. Um, that's a charge given to every Mason at the end of a meeting. And that charge really is a reminder of your obligations. And I can talk about this because it's public. At that point, the lodge is closed. It's not tiled. This isn't a secret. Okay. You can read this in any book. The aspect of being equal is premised on within a lodge, when Masons meet, all Masons are viewed as being equal. And so there's no concept of station in life. It doesn't matter if, I mean, well, look at us. We're in different stations. You're an executive and I'm an academic. We exist in different hierarchies at different levels.
Are you an
Within
academic?
a lodge. Well, hey, man. I've done a little bit of work. Within a lodge, we're viewed as being what's called on the level. And so we're equal within the confines of that sacred space. That is to extend further. And that's the segue into all of mankind has an equal claim to your kind offices. And so just as much as you may ring me up one day and be like, hey, dude, I need your help, that is on the same level as somebody that just walks up my 50-yard driveway and I don't know, man, they need a little bit of sugar, they need a bread. I don't know, right? Those claims upon my kindness are to be viewed as equal.
Are they equal though?
And here's how I'd rationalize this. This is how I view it. What if all you needed that one day was for me to listen to whatever you needed to vent about? And that made you a better person because you were able to express that negativity in a safe space. And I mean that in its real context, right? Not in a social justice context. Just as much as what if somebody walked up my driveway right now and they said, hey, listen, man, all I need is one sip of water and that's going to save my life. That to me is the exact same thing.
Well, so in those scenarios, it was something that was easily givable. But let's say that person walks up your driveway and says, I need a kidney and you're a match, versus your wife saying she needs your kidney and it's a match. They're no longer equal. The ask may be equal, but the position of those people are not equal. They both need the kidney.
Yeah, well, of course, man. And every system has its, let's call them caveats or catches or outs, right? And within the context I'm operating in, those are clearly defined. Well, clearly but ambiguously defined insofar as the catch is these are obligations insofar as they don't cause injury to myself or my family or my property. And that's, of course, at my discretion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where, yeah, we all have a claim. The claim to me is the ask. It doesn't mean the result is going to necessarily be the same. And there's
Yeah,
no, you asking for something versus someone I don't know. there's a huge difference in my mind in terms of the credence I will give to that ask.
Would you agree then that this is really what we're talking about in a different context, that there's equal opportunity, but not equal outcome?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with
And I'm
that.
not saying that it diminished it. I mean, I do believe that, hey, look, I mean, there's a big difference. You're asking something from someone that you don't know at all. The probability that you're going to get what you asked for is minimal. There's none, right? You're never going to get it. So there's no
Yeah.
harm.
Yeah.
No harm in the ask. And I absolutely believe that from a societal standpoint, those of us that choose to be leaders, and it is a choice. There are those that are capable of leading and choose not to. There are those that don't want to be a leader and they choose that they have to. And then there are those that want to be a leader and choose to be a leader. And when you are, you give more of yourself than what you will ever receive from all others combined. That's
a fair statement.
right. It's just going to happen. And a big obligation that I think we have, if we claim in any way, shape, or form that we're a leader, is to stop the self-fulfilling prophecy of people are dumbasses and stupid and idiots.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that I see where organizations fail is they will do a few different silly things to my mind. One of those is not triple down on their top performers. They will allow human resources to intervene and prevent, for whatever reason, as to why that person shouldn't get this kind of compensation. Big mistake, huge mistake, every which way you could possibly think about, because if they're a top performer and they leave, you are screwed. Period. All right? You got a 100-person organization. Square root of any organization does 50% of the work. So at a 100-person organization, 10 people are doing 50% of the work. So that means one person is doing, what is that? Percent for 5, what is that? 10%?
Well, I'm going to sit back and listen to your Ross math.
Fuck, I don't remember, dude. I'm trying to go. So 100 people, 50% is 10 people. So 10. Yeah, so 5. It's 5%. Even after all that alcohol, I can still do it. So one person leaves, 5% in any. That's significant. That's statistically significant. You're losing 5% productivity for one person leaving. Yeah. If one of the other people leave, who cares? Like almost right. From a technology perspective, I can replace them with a shell script.
You're right, but who's leaving first?
Well,
it ain't the rank and file.
It's not. It's
your high performers, because they have choices. Right.
And human resources would prefer to take care of the 50% that is doing nothing, right? Which is going to be, in this scenario, the 90 people. Mm-hmm. As a leader, you got to tell HR, no. You better pay those people. I don't care if one of the rank and file leave. If they're rank and file, they're cannon fodder. Like, they're there. They're doing something, but they're just getting by. Now, as a leader, I would hope I could try to get, like, my goal as a leader is in my organization to get the square root plus the square root of my organization doing the work, doing the 50%. Mm-hmm. That's my goal. Mm-hmm. It's not an attainable goal. I understand that. I don't care. Still what I want. I'm still going to go for it. Maybe at some point it is attainable. I think at some point it will be. I think when you, at least for a short period of time, it's attainable. Mm-hmm. And when you get there, that's typically when that company is able to go IPO. They're the top in the industry, and then at that point, it's downhill from there. Because it's not attainable in my mind in perpetuity. It's got a limit. Because all of those people,
Yeah, sure it does.
right? And all of those people are now worth more than what you are capable of compensating them for. It's the same reason why when you take a look at an NFL team. An NFL team, after they win the Super Bowl, typically it's a lot of those superstars are in contract years. They've peaked, and now they go cash in. And that Super Bowl winning team can't compete with those that want them a part of their team. And so once you peak, you've peaked. And there's nothing wrong with that. Rebuild, do it all over again. But understand, you allow one of your top performers to leave because of compensation. The only reason why they're looking is because they felt in some way, shape, or form they were undervalued because you chose to not make sure they're valued. And I have the luxury in my organization of sitting in a lot of the human resources discussions, and I fundamentally disagree with some of it. Human resources, I mean, many people happen to believe that they're like for the employees. Well, they're not. They're for the company. But what we see in this case is that they go, we want people to be at 100% of the midpoint of that salary range in 5 years. If you're a top performer, you better be at that 100% of the midpoint in like a year.
Right.
Right? When you're a top performer. And if you're a top performer, this following year, like from a grade level perspective, you shouldn't be in any single grade level for more than 2 cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as a leader, you should be figuring it out quick. Don't let HR, so to speak, bully you into what you are going to pay them. It's not their budget, it's your budget.
Yep.
And
well, if I can interject real quick,
yeah.
I got spoiled at my first startup because I learned that lesson early on that if you were a high performer, well, I'll put it to you this way. First of all, I don't know that I've...
Dude, that's what we've both been in startups. Every 6 months, I either got like a 10% raise or your shit was in a box.
It's exactly what I was going to say. That's right.
It's not.
It's like there was no in between. And to this day, dude, to this day, I'm talking about 20 years of work history, right? I don't know that I've ever had a performance review. Honestly.
Oh, no, I gave you one.
What's that?
I gave you one. It was okay.
Dude, we never had a discussion about it.
I mean,
you told me it was great.
I mean, great considering your performance.
Well, I mean, who are you going to compare me to? Ian and Stoney? Of course I'm a standout.
It's all based on your peer group.
It's based on this profile. Look at that, man. Dude, I'm svelte.
Oh, well,
But to me, performance is obvious because at a high performing level, yeah, man, you got 10% every 6 months, or your shit was in a box when you showed up, and that's the environment I grew up in. And so, to me, I think the obligation isn't based on that review; it's based on the operation of what we're doing. That's how I perceive it, and I think that's how I perceive other people. It's that it's not whether or not they're stupid or they suck. It's are they reaching their maximum potential? And for some people, that potential isn't the same as somebody else's. Of course it's not. They're different people. That's why you have to have conversations, and you have to be invested in the people that are in the organization that are supporting it. I don't understand how there's a way around it until you get into these giant bureaucracies that are full of HR red tape that just want to categorize people according to a number. Well, come on, man. No, you don't have any power, HR. I totally agree with you, man. It drives me crazy. HR is barely In fact, sometimes when I sit back and think about this, you get me fired up, dude. This is on the level of immune systems. I don't know who's worse, high school guidance counselors or HR people. That's a contest to zero.
Aren't they the same?
Probably.
So, I mean, there are good HR people that understand the aspect of our people, our capital, that it's a commodity, or sorry, that it's not a commodity. It is a resource that is got a limit. And when you find a precious metal, a precious commodity, you figure out ways to keep them. There are those that are out there. A majority, unfortunately, are all about not taking any risks. They don't want to say those things. And this is what I tell my managers. All managers. Doesn't matter if they work for me or not. How is your department going to be affected if that low performer leaves? If the answer is not much, then the answer is quite simple. Figure out a way to have them self-select out or help them out. Bottom line is, an organization is much more productive when you have positive conflict and people are willing to be wrong and you treat it like a consulting organization. Like, look, so in many ways, I grew up in that consulting field. Dude, if you got less than a 4 rating, you were gone.
Right.
If you got an average of a 4 2 years in a 2-year interval, you were gone. You better be performing on average at a 4.5 every 2 years, or you're not there. Right? That's what they wanted, because we were being billed out as management consultants. Our job was to make sure we were solving very complex problems at a high level of efficiency. That doesn't right. You've got to stop being afraid to go, well, this person is just not working out. But that takes time. You've got to invest. You got to figure it out. Sometimes people that appear to be performing low is because they just don't know. Sometimes they're performing poorly because they're just poor performers. And you got to figure out the difference between the two. They may not be in the right position. I always take a look at their culture. Like, are they a culture fit? If the answer is yes, then I will provide more training. And if then that doesn't work, well, then you're just not capable. And hey, not everyone can be CEO. Not everyone can be CIO.
Well, right. I mean, just as much as only 10 to 20%, depending on your total distribution, are high performers, only 10% or so are true low performers. The distribution is, most people are average. And so, I can look at like my grade distribution over history. Because of the way I teach, usually what happens is by the midterm, there's a nice even distribution. And then what I look for from midterm to final is a separation of those spaces. The people that are actually capable of being mid to high will start to gravitate that way. And the people that aren't capable will start to gravitate towards the lower end. And I actually found comfort in that, because if you're not in the right space, I want to tell you that sooner rather than later. Because the sooner we figure this out, we can get you into a better space where you are competent within that hierarchy, and that's going to be long-term better for you. And as brutal as that may come across, that's part of being, I think, in a good alignment with people around you, right? Just as much as if somebody's capable of being more of a high performer, or they are a high performer, I think they should be treated as such as soon as possible, so that their growth can be accelerated. Me, you, and TK have talked about this a lot in terms of like the general education system, is that it does really good with average. The education system does not do good with polar extremes. And that's dangerous. That's really dangerous because that's not an insignificant amount of people.
It's not. I think this is where many people's egos get in the way.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I say that because I believe every person in this world has something they can be competent in and make a good wage for the future generations. The issue comes into how do we get them there, right? Let's say, as an example, my parents just wanted me to be a CPA. Could I be a CPA? Sure, but I would hate it. I'd be a shitty CPA. Just would do it. I don't enjoy that. And so sometimes people choose things based upon the wrong reasons. And so in some way, in many ways, what you were just stating is absolutely correct. I think it's our job as leaders is to help them to find their path. Their path might not be what it's currently at because they may suck at that. But if they're a good person, we can find something that they're able to excel in for them. Like there's a difference between there's going to be people who are great people that have a low IQ and therefore they're not capable of earning hundreds of thousands of dollars. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It's going to find something that they can excel at for them. Mm-hmm. And they're still going to be a good part of society. We're not talking about those that are bad people. We're talking about trying to find something that they can be competent in. Everyone can be competent in something if they choose to be. And I think there's a very low percentage of people who choose to just, so to speak, live on welfare. I just don't think there's that many people that want to do that.
There's not, man. In fact, a study just came out 2 weeks ago that showed, at least in California, for every $10 that went to a single mother that was homeless, that was getting a state benefit, right? For every $10, $8 of it, that mother spent on the children, not on drugs, not on booze for themselves, not on waste. They actually were investing in what you would typically categorize according to a Maslow's hierarchy.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, of course, I mean, I would suspect that it doesn't surprise you, but I would suspect that it would surprise a lot of people that try to view the world as if anybody that isn't doing X is an idiot. No, they're not an idiot, man. They're not an idiot. They're not in the right place. What if, this is part of my obsession, right? What if it was as simple as giving that person a fucking hug? Seriously. Maybe they've never felt the proximity of human embrace, and that's really all they need to let them realize that the world sucks, but there's people that actually care about other people. And that allows them to reach their maximum potential, whatever that is. Look, man, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm not naive. I don't think everybody's capable of the same thing. We're different. And I think that's beautiful. I don't think that absolves any of us of our responsibility to help the people around us as much as we can extend that reach that maximum potential. I think that's the only way we survive as a species.
Well, you know, at least when I break it down, I think the most selfless people in the world are moms.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be the outliers, but that doesn't surprise me in that particular statistic because I have never in my that I can recall met anyone that's a mom that didn't give more to their children than what they received, and they were willing to sacrifice so many other parts of their world to make sure their children had more than what they did, regardless of where they're at, right? Yeah, you can tell me 100 outliers, unlimited outliers. I'm sure there are, right? But in general, they're going to do whatever they can. They will go without to make sure their children have it. And but if you were to ask them, I believe, got no data to back this up. I've never seen any studies on any of this. But I believe if you could say to those same women, you're going to get all of those things, and I'm going to show you a way that you can contribute in addition to, they'd all say yes. There's all those same women, because all they're getting is the satisfaction that their child is being cared for. Allowing any of them to be able to contribute outside of that is going to also allow them to go that they're contributing more. And I think they would do it. I don't think any of them would say no. Like, because they're going to feel more self-satisfaction. And it probably does even more good to the environment. I don't know that men/fathers would do the same, to be honest. I don't know that to be the case. And I don't.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
I don't know, and again, I look at it as, all right, I'm a dad. I love my children. I do anything possibly for them. But the bond that I feel that I have with them is more, I will say, psychological than emotional, because I will never have that connection with them that their mom did. They didn't live inside me. They didn't,
right.
They all of those pieces, I think, contribute. So I can help them intellectually. I can help them with a strength aspect, but I will never have that emotional bond that they will have with their mom. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that it's less than. It's different. It provides a different type of thing.
No, and 100% agree. And I think our society would be better off if we celebrated those differences.
We should celebrate those differences, because if we were all the same, we'd all be comfortable, and humans would be dead 1,000 years ago, if not sooner.
Yeah. We just fulfill different roles, man. And so not only do we as biological sexes fulfill different roles, and listen, man, I don't think this should be a controversial topic, right? Clearly we do, right? I'm not capable of gestating a fetus. I'm a male, biologically.
Are you?
This ain't twins. Well, listen, man, fucking look at that. Fucking. That's not TRT, bro. That's straight JMP.
I don't know. I gotta tell you, Fallon Fox has the same bicep.
Dude, she ain't got fucking 20-inch pythons. Hey, but okay, so there's that difference, and I really think we should celebrate that.
I was gonna say that particular comment just made it to where this show's not making any money. I'm saying,
listen, man,
completely.
I wasn't counting on my 3 cents anyway.
I was saying this
only in jest.
But so I think as a society, we'd be healthier if we celebrated those differences and reinforced them, right? Because speaking as a dad, listen, man, first of all, there's no books for dads. Nothing prepared me for the level of helplessness I felt. I can't feed that baby, dude. Like, right?
I mean, not naturally. Not naturally.
Right. Nothing prepared me for that deep. It drove me into a deep depression for a little bit, man. Because, dude, what am I doing? I'm not even capable of being a voyeur at this point. Anyway, but there's also another spectrum in this hierarchy of society. When we talk about like IQs, we talk about professions, we talk about vocation and interest. There's all these parameters at which, instead of figuring out, and this goes back to your original point, man, instead of figuring out who's the idiot, Why don't we figure out who's the best at X and get those people into those positions? It's the same thing from a different perspective. And so, like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about projections. Like, how do you start to think about how to think about something 5, 10, 20, 100 years in the future? And for me, it starts with.
I think it's simple.
Go ahead.
I just try to predict what's going to happen tomorrow, and then 2 days, and then a week, and then 2 weeks, and then a month, then a quarter, and then a year, 2 years. Like, hey, when I predict you're going to be a chicken farmer, it was like 5 years into the future.
Right, but that didn't start from you thinking I was an idiot.
No, I didn't. It definitely did not. Well, yeah. There's only been maybe 1 or 2 times I thought you were an idiot. I mean, but other than that,
I tried to tee it up for you, man. You know, I think that's why where we started this conversation is the easy, intellectually lazy route is to assume people are stupid. The hard work, which is the unforgiving sacrifice of leadership, right? Because it's service oriented. It's a net negative. And you talk about like energy, right? Is to assume that not that somebody's an idiot, that they're not in the right spot to be successful. Maybe their partner has cancer and they're bearing that burden. Maybe they've never been hugged. Maybe they didn't have the benefit of certain experiences. And so as leaders, I think it's incumbent upon us, I say, if I can be so bold, that it's our obligation on a very deep human level to find out what it is that individual lacks in this context and to try and give that to them. Now, it's free for them to accept or decline. You know, I'm that's not a value judgment for me. It's a recognition that humans exist on a very diverse spectrum. And that should be celebrated, man. That's much more interesting to me than all the social justice bullshit when you talk about inclusion and diversity.
well, you know, I'm not so interested in the politicized aspect of DE&I.
Yeah.
I believe that there is absolute merit in diversity of thought, including all types of voices in your organization, considering what those voices have to say, which is different than acting upon all of them in terms of the way they want, because, well, look, I don't want you to consider it, but there's going to be some things that are just not rational to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that the E in the equitable aspect is based upon the results of your actions. And as leaders, our job is to make sure that everyone that works for us, in many ways I like to say works with us, because if they're not successful, I'll never be successful. But our job is to make sure that they have all of the appropriate tools to surpass our expectations of those that are in our charge. Now, it's up to them to do it. And if they do, hey, that means you're a top performer because you've surpassed what I believed you were capable of. But I'm doing everything to make sure you're capable of it. Because that means I'm looking for a better tomorrow. And you've got to be a part of that. And if you're not, DE&I, and done the right way, says I am going to be, as what I tell my people, you're a manager, you're in charge of those. Not only do you have to be better tomorrow, but everyone in your charge, you need to give the opportunity to be better tomorrow. And if you're not doing that, you're failing. And you're failing upon my expectations of me putting you in charge of a smaller subset. And if you continue to do that, then I will find someone else that I will provide the opportunity to be entrusted with that opportunity to make others better. And it's hard. It should be hard, because if it was easy, then we would already be out of the Milky Way.
Yeah, right. I mean, when an individual is prepared to take on that responsibility of leadership, they ought to be also co-committing with it, capable of generating their own energy such that they can give that out through their service. And I would argue, insofar as we agree that faith without deeds is meaningless, we're agreeing that faith with deeds is meaningful. And I think that, in a nutshell, to me, is leadership. My sole purpose in life at that point is to make sure that you have the ability to embody your deeds in the world such that your faith becomes meaningful.
Amen. So with that, so we talked last week, and I brought it up with TK, and I expanded upon our conversation from last Wednesday in terms of how much time do you think, but how much time do you try to dedicate into being absent of thought? And I think they're equally important, because that absence of thought is what TK and I came up with. It's like a whiteboard. You've kind of cleaned it all off and you're starting fresh. And so I started thinking about, like, how often do I do that? I mean, it's pretty often. But the thing that I enjoy the most, where I have to become absent of thought, is when I do cryotherapy.
Yeah.
If anyone has an opportunity to do it, they should do it. But if you think you're mentally strong, see how long you can, no more than 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a long time at negative 178 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. That is a mind over matter. I got to tell you, when I come out of that 3 minutes, and I am literally, truly, like, I'll have the person there that's kind of monitoring stuff. I don't want to be talked to. I don't want you to do anything other than monitor myself to make sure I'm not doing anything that I'm not supposed to be doing. I am purely focusing on my breathing for that 3 minutes. That's it. I want to hear those sounds. I don't think about anything else. And that has helped my meditation tremendously.
Yeah.
About 3 minutes is, and it's a long time at negative 178 degrees Fahrenheit, my friend.
Well, 3 minutes is an eternity when you're suffering. It's interesting you bring that up, man, because I mentioned this in the pre-show. I wanted to share this with our fans and audience. So, we had talked some time ago. I was having some success in these races on Sundays, and I was getting first places. And then I've had a string of second places. And now I've actually had a string of DNFs, did not finish. The last 2 races I've done, I didn't finish. And so I kind of stepped
Does
back.
that bother you?
Yes, it bothers me immensely because I can't figure out why.
It's your eyebrows.
And so, what's that?
It's your eyebrows.
It's my eyebrows. Come on, man. They're animated. Look at that. They're not even painted on. Those are natural. No, it bothers me because it doesn't have an explanation. And so I stepped back. This is kind of what we're talking about, right? You kind of have to step back and ask yourself, well, why? What's the reasoning behind this? And so there's a variety of explanations. I tend to gravitate towards, let's rule out the easiest ones first. And so it occurred to me, because I've been on this threshold of getting into the next race category, which is based on your power output. Okay. And I've been getting into this higher race category, which requires more power output. And I've been doing longer races. And so, interesting enough, because I track all this data for years, all this stuff exists on curves, and you can break it down to basically what it is 20-minute power, 5-minute power, 3-minute power, 1-minute power, and then very brief, like sub 1 minute power. And you can chart this on curves. And I noticed in my data that there was a distinct discrepancy between what my 20-minute power was, which is basically a full race, the way that charts out, and my 3-minute power. Okay, and so I recently switched over to this tactic because of the way these races work, that the first 5 minutes actually are the most important, because you have to get into the group that's going to set the pace, and you stick with that, and that requires an enormous 5-minute power output for your category. And what I detected for myself was that effort was depleting me physiologically so much that halfway through the race I would just basically run out of steam, right? We call it bonking. And so I deplete all my energy stores, right? So there's no more there's no more energy. And so I wondered, well, why? Okay, so I went back, and long story short, I did a scientific test the other day, and I found that there was actually a measurement discrepancy in my equipment. And it was a discrepancy such that the reading into the race and my training was putting me into a higher power category than I was perceiving. And so what was happening is I was depleting my physiologically energy stores faster than I anticipated. And so now, through the beauty of science, because I used a second instrument to measure myself, I've adjusted my power levels down so that when I'm racing and training, I'm in a more appropriate category. Go science. That was a really long explanation for a very simple thing.
Well, I'm used to that. But that is an important lesson that everyone should take away. I mean, it's no different than, hey, got a couple people reporting, hey, can't hear the ninja. I'm like, well, what do you mean? You could hear him a moment ago. All right, let's go through this process. Well, what changed? Let's go through. Bam, bam, bam. I'm like, hey, the audio is no longer on this bullshit sound blaster. Actually, it's not bullshit. It's a nice little device. I mean, it really is. It can do 4 different inputs, and I can mix all of them together if I really had it. But something changed. Like, what happened? Well, take that into every day. This is what works. All of a sudden, something doesn't work. Something had to change. If it always worked before, it's not working now. The environment changed, right? In your case, hey, you've been taking all these measurements for so many years. Something was awry. Well, what changed? And you figured it out. It's like that with everything. Well,
and I'll tell you exactly what it was. I don't know why, like from a hardware computing sense, this is true, but I know what changed is the device I hook my bike onto that produces some of these metrics. The microcontroller that controls the magnetic engine that produces resistance died, and I had to replace it. And since then, and this is what's interesting, man. So you basically have like 7 power zones that are measured, and these are very scientific, man. There's an enormous literature around this. I love it. You have basically 7 power zones. 1 through 4, you probably couldn't tell the difference between. You couldn't really tell the difference in terms of how much energy you're outputting over an hour. But once you go from like 5 to 6, or even worse, 6 to 7, you're talking minutes of energy. That's all you have because of how much output you're producing, right? And so what happened is because of the calibration difference in this new microcontroller on the magnetic drive that produces resistance, my measurements are roughly, let's say, 20 watts off. Okay, but power zones 1 through 4, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I could do that for days on end, right? But when you get into zone 6 to 7, that 20 watt difference is the difference between 20 minutes of power or 1 minute of power. That's how pronounced that difference is, because it's just and that's universal. Every human being subject to that system. I love that, man. I fucking love that.
Well, it's true. As you are closer to the line, the whatever that progressive line is, as you get higher up in the skill level or capability level, they start to diverge. And the higher up you go, the more divergent there is. There's very, very little divergent in, like, when you talk about position levels in the company. Entry level compared to what you're paying versus the industry, it's probably like right on par. It's when you start getting into those higher skill categories where all of a sudden now the CEO of a Fortune 500 makes significantly more than a CEO of a 500 person company.
Yeah. Well, and so this is one of the things I love about cycling, and because it's really subject to biological and physiological systems. Is I've said this before on This Life in Tech and on this show as well. The difference between me as a cyclist and a World Tour Tour de France champion, they can output probably 4 times the amount of power I can, and they can do it for 8 times the amount of time. Okay, but what's true is they exist on the same spectrum of power zones 1 through 7. And so if they fuck up their calculations, or they don't eat right, or they don't hydrate correctly, or whatever, they don't EPO enough, their 6 to 7 is the same barrier as my 6 to 7. They're just on a different place in the scale. And I think this goes back, interestingly enough, to our conversation is, I think as leaders, our duty and our obligation is to find where on the scale or the spectrum person A needs to be the best person A that person can be, period.
All true.
Of course it is.
And it's challenging to find out where they should be. And it's even more challenging to convince them that that's where they should be.
Yeah, because often, you've had young kids. I have a young kid, and I just had this conversation with baby Pittman not too long ago. Of we were at the Ren Fair on Sunday. Perfect example, man, because it's biophysiological also.
Well, I'm just curious. Was she dressed in a Star Trek uniform?
No, dude. She was a Dark Ranger.
Acceptable.
I tried to convince her every time somebody asked her a question to say, what are we if not slaves to this torment? And she wouldn't say it, dude. That's a Sylvanas quote from World of Warcraft. But anyway, so she likes doing the jumpy thing and the wall climbing, the rock climbing. And she wanted to do the rock climbing this year. She had done it 2 years ago. 1 year ago it was canceled because of COVID. And she didn't get very far up, and she got very scared very fast, and she didn't want to go anymore. And so I came over and helped her, and all I said was, look, dude, I'm here. I'm pushing on you. You don't want to go any higher. I want you to go one more step and realize that's what it's about. I didn't say that part of it, right? But that's mentally what it is, I think, as a leader. Is you're telling me this is what you're capable of. I want you to go one more step. Let's see how far you can go.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely an important lesson. And I tell this to all of my people, and you've heard me say it many times. I want to know what your breaking point is. And once I find out what your breaking point is, tomorrow it's changed.
Yeah. Well, it should.
It's no different than anything. Today you can lift 100 pounds. Tomorrow you should be able to lift 101.
Yep. And I think sorry to interject.
No, you're good.
I think really to our point, abstractly, is you should believe you're capable of doing 101. I think that's the important lesson. I don't actually care if you can do it. I need you to believe that you can go try it.
I think in the beginning, they don't know what they're capable of. Later,
Right, exactly.
after they've done this many times, and I say this with I don't have dreams, I have goals.
Mm-hmm.
Dreams are useless and pointless to me. I have a goal, and that goal is going to get that check mark. I'm going to do it, and I do this with all of the people that I come around. I mean, I talk about it even with you. All right, hey, what's going on with your next book? All right, and I know the progress and stuff like that. I'm like, because that's important. That is one of your goals. I'm like, okay, Where are you at? Because you told me about it. Now, regardless if you wanted it or not, I'm holding you accountable to what you told me.
Yeah.
Right? As I would expect in converse, because that's what I believe a true friend does, is hold each other accountable to the things that they say that they want. It's not what I want for you. It's about what you want for yourself. And how can I be a part of helping you to get that? Do that same thing with people that work with me. Actually, not just work with me. Every person I come into contact with that's of substance that I believe is worthy of me checking in on them. Not everyone's worthy, and therefore I don't, because they self-selected out. It's not because I chose them. They chose no. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Not everyone's going to want to be capable of the pressure I'm going to put on you. All right, I had an employee leave the organization not too long ago, and this individual said that after a certain period of time, I no longer had one-on-ones with them, and they just felt like I was not a mentor to them that I was going to be. True, because that individual chose to not believe that they were capable of more, and they showed that they were unable to live up to my culture. And it's not a hard culture. It's very simple. Because, and I said this to one of the candidates I was been interviewing. We talk about in personal relationships about a love language. Mm-hmm. What's your love language? So I said, my professional love language is you better be able to demonstrate that you want to be better tomorrow than you are today. And if you can't do that, we're not going to get along. If you are a manager of people, then my love language to you is you need to make sure that not only yourself is better tomorrow than you are today, all your people are. And if you can't do that, it's not going to go well. That's my love language professionally. You must be that way. If you're not, well, it's not going to go well.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And I think that is the type of attitude, in all seriousness, that is representative of what can make our society better. And because we have to be honest with one another, we have to be in a place where we can point out each other's errors and aid in the reformation. That's part of the obligation, also. And we need to be honest with ourselves first and foremost, and we need to accept that responsibility of not only our own freedom, but our responsibility to make ourselves and those around us better than we were yesterday. And look, man, I don't think anybody. We've had a lot of conversations on the show and offline about performance and being better, and I don't think anybody really has any unrealistic or unreasonable expectations. Right? You're talking about 100 to 101, dude. Really, at that point, you're talking about 100 to 101. One more pound is not that much, dude. It's really not. It's mental. It's 100% the psychology of it. But I think that really is the core of leadership. It's convincing people. No, actually, better said, it's about allowing people to realize that they are singularly their biggest impediment to success. That's it. It's nothing else. It's the person themselves.
100%. So, you're, big power lifter, right? I mean, at least at one point in time until we become old. So when you, and I imagine, as a powerlifter, you just based on your build that you were, and I could be completely wrong, but you were very much so into like deadlifts.
Actually, deadlifts were always my weakest event.
So
squat was my best.
Okay.
My second was bench press, and my third was deadlift.
So squat, deadlift, a lot of that is legs. Okay, so let's go squat. Okay. So when the very first time you reached your max for squat, how many times do you think after that were you unable to reach that max again for that one time?
Well, that's actually a really good question, man. I got to think about that for a second.
Of course, it's a good question. I'm a fucking doctor.
Yeah, right?
And I bring this up because many times in my mind, when you reach a peak for the first time, there may be several, if not many times, where you may not reach that peak on a consistent basis until that peak is no longer a peak. It's become part of your normal practice. And so when I go back and look at things, I go, all right, I may have had a bad day. I can't reach that peak because I had a bad day. It doesn't mean the effort that I put into it was any less. I just had a bad day. I might have been not hydrated enough. I may not have had enough sleep. I might have gotten to an argument with the missus. I might have, all these things that prevented me from reaching that peak today. But it didn't mean that I felt a failure. So you being a power lifter, that's kind of that aspect of I've never been a power lifter. I've only ever lifted weights for one simple goal of being bigger, faster, stronger. I was never doing it in terms of bulk. It was always because I needed to be bigger, faster, stronger. Period.
Yeah.
But big difference between someone that's a power lifter, in my mind at least. So every one of those peaks, bottom line, my top bench of all time is 280 pounds. That's it. I'm not a big guy, but I feel like 280 pounds is, especially at the time I was only 180, so it was 100 pounds more than I weighed to bench. I feel like that was pretty damn solid. I was only ever able to do that 3 times. 3 times. I don't feel as a failure. It just happened to be 3 times I was able to actually do it.
But I'll tell you, man. Well, first of all, it's hard for me to answer your question because that was so far in my past that it's honestly hard for me to remember.
It's because you're old.
Well, yes. We're old, to correct you. But I think there's an abstract example that then I can extrapolate into something that I can remember technical specifics of, which is cycling. So I think abstractly what's important that you're getting at is process. It's the process that matters, that you have to have belief and trust in. And so as a power lifter, I would tend to agree in a general principle that I probably failed more lifts than I succeeded at. But what I trusted in was the training process, that when I picked an event to go to, like a meet, right, that my training would get me to the point where that was my maximal lift, right? The training failures didn't matter.
Right. So let's go to something more relative. I think it's the same way, right? In your last year, what is your, maybe correct the terminology, but let's say, what's your best quarter mile in racing? And then how many times were you able to meet that quarter mile time?
Oh, I understand where you're getting at. Yeah, right. And so then now we're talking about like the technical specifics of it. Well, look, this is the breakdown of it, right? Of the last, let's say, 8 races I've done, 3 I got gold, 3 I got silver, and 2 I didn't finish.
And your times for gold, silver, and did not finish.
The golds are very similar, of course. They're within a very, let's say, statistically insignificant margin of one another, and those are all on the same course, right? Because you part of what I'm thinking about too is the confounding variables, because that's where you get into like hydration. You can actually get into like temperature and shit like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I lost my train of thought real quick. Let me regather it.
How many were the gold? Because you said they were insignificant. How many were gold?
Of the last 8 races, 3 were gold, 3 were silver, 2 did not finish.
So 5 times in this case, you didn't reach your current top level potential.
Right.
For whatever reason. It doesn't mean it was, but because there's so, I think people fail to realize your top best is not always going to be your top best until you have surpassed on all levels that you are now fully capable of that your current top best of being your bottom best. And so those do not finishes today are to me more important than your gold finishes, because I would go back and go, all right, a year ago, what were your do not finishes then?
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet there's a huge discrepancy of those do not finishes versus your top being like, there's probably much small. I mean, that's my guess. I could be completely wrong, but I believe your bottom performance a year ago, big difference between your top.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, I thought this is kind of what you're getting at. And if we kind of take like the middle ground between the abstraction and the technical specifics of it, is I would argue that my failures are just as important as my successes at raising what's normative.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And so like, when you came out and stayed with us in California, to give you a baseline, right? And that wasn't that long ago, right? My maximum 1 hour power output was 180. Okay. My maximum power output now is 280. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is fucking huge.
No, it is absolutely. I mean, it's a 180% improvement.
Yeah. And so within cycling, right? Like I said, man, the difference between I can do this for 20 minutes or I can only do this for 1 minute is only 10%. It's a very small margin.
Well, I mean,
you get up to these high power outputs.
I mean, I was going to just add that. All right, so I mean, I've talked about me humbling myself with jiu-jitsu. I've been doing it since June. It's not a long time. I got to tell you, it's kicking my ass. Like it's a huge difference of a striking system versus a grappling system.
Yeah, the energy systems are completely different.
Oh my gosh, yes. And with that, this past Monday, I did 20 minutes of rolling.
Mm-hmm.
That's
long. That's fucking long.
I mean, because there was more white belts than color belts, so the white belts always got. I'm like, look, I had to volunteer. I got no problem. I've hurt my wrist. I've got tendonitis in my wrist. It hurts. So I could easily get this thing healed if I just decided to do nothing for like a month. It's not happening. Nope. So I just try to make sure I don't damage it further. When it hurts, I sit out. And the professor that's there, he's like, "Hey, you can't sit out anymore." And I'm like, "No, I'm sitting out. Because otherwise, if I don't, I won't be here for the next 2 weeks."
Right.
And don't care what you have to say, because you're not going to pressure me into doing something that I know the limits of my body. And and this is, if anyone wants to know, why are the Russians better at wrestling overall in terms of medals over the Americans? It's because of this. The Russians believe it is better to train till you are unable to train at your top performance, whereas Americans believe it is better to train through pain. It's 100% true. Do not overtrain. Overtraining is worse. This is why Russians have more medals than Americans in terms of all of.
Particularly in like anaerobic sports, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, wrestling, very heavy power-based movements. Often, and this is what I've realized over the years of cycling, way more than I did as a powerlifter, is the training is the training. It is what it is. What actually matters is how you recover.
Oh, recovery is huge, right? I mean,
that's what gives you stability and longevity.
that's why I do cryotherapy. I've got a device that's not cheap. I fill it up with ice water, and it's got a connection. It's got a pump that will pump cold water through this device, regardless if it's my arm, my knee, my back, whatever it is. It circulates ice cold water through a pack, comes back out. That water that hits your skin, which is less than the ice, goes back to the ice water. That circulation, I do that constantly. And I got to tell you, being a white belt again, it sucks.
It does, dude.
Right? And I don't mean it as a negative. Like, the sucking point was, all right, so there's many things I do know. I know how to fall. I'm not worried about that. They can throw me on whatever. I know how to properly fall. No big deal. The issue in that particular point is when someone doesn't do the proper technique and they throw you, and it's not in a position in which you're able to properly fall because they didn't do it right.
Correct.
That sucks. That sucks. I hate it.
Well,
I'm 46 years old. I don't want to be thrown on concrete, basically.
Well, and to your point, and so we talk about, like, for instance, in specific, my last 8 races, we didn't talk about the other 6 days every week that I ride, right? And so I get way more out of the weekly workouts where I brush up against my barrier and then maybe do like a little bit more for the psychological benefit, right? But I don't necessarily complete the workout. I've detached myself from, I need to do this. I'm much more into the experience of, I'm going to do what is comfortable for my body today because I've learned how to listen to it. And then just a little bit more for the psychological benefit because that's what's important. And, I fail way more often than I succeed. And it's the accumulation of surviving failure that allows me to race and B, withstand that type of sustained pressure.
So, which is a better record for you? What you've done in a race or what you've done in practice?
Ask that again.
Which is your record? Like your best, time in a race or in practice?
Oh, that's a good question, man, because actually I was going to say earlier that I've actually set more personal records coming in second or not finishing a race than I have winning a race. Funny enough, right? You would think that, you won first place, you must have done your best record ever. No, my best personal times, either in completing a course in terms of minutes or my power output records, have come from failures, not successes.
Same with
If we
me.
define success as first place.
So, I mean, I don't find that ironic at all. I find that to be true. Well, I feel like in all my competitions of regardless, I perform well in my practices. But I've always felt that now when it's on the line, I rise more to the occasion. Even if I've lost, I always felt that my competition, true competition, scores, times, whatever you want to call it, always better than my practices.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would agree with that, man, for sure. Um, and it's not that practice is easy. And so this is kind of maybe perverse, but there's a part of me that, well, because I've competed and exercised for a long time in terms of my life, I have to work out every day in some way, even if it's just yoga and stretching, right? I have to do something where it actually drives me a little crazy. Um, and I probably behave poorly in like a psychological sense. And so I need that level of conflict against myself. So this is man versus himself in the classic literature sense. But I actually enjoy, whether it was powerlifting in my past, cycling now, I did a lot of running. I don't do as much now. Um, I actually enjoy suffering a little bit, man. Like I like doing something that I don't want to do. Because, well, I mean, I've said it before on one of our shows, or at least, in our conversations. My life's fucking fantastic, man. I really don't have a lot of adversity. I really don't. And so I feel like to balance my own ego a little bit, I need to suffer in some way, willfully and purposefully, so that it depletes that system so that I'm more in harmony with myself, if not the universe.
Well, you just need more tattoos.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, yeah, that is true.
All
I'm
right,
about to do.
all right. So we'll quickly pivot. Did you watch the fights this past weekend?
I watched the highlights.
I bought it because, well, um, I really enjoy Rose Namajunas. I think she embodies the samurai spirit. I think
Yep.
she is absolutely a warrior in the garden versus a gardener in a war. And I wanted to see how she would perform. And because, I mean, look, she doesn't talk trash, and there's so many people that have been tried to entice her, and she's just like stoic. So big fan. And then
She's the sorry for me, and I think you'll agree. Tell me if you don't. She's the women's MMA embodiment of what GSP was for the men's MMA.
actually, I don't know that I have an equivalent on that side because as much as I like GSP, I don't think I don't feel GSP is a samurai.
Oh, interesting. We have some controversy finally in this episode.
Yeah, I don't feel. I mean, is he a warrior? Is he humble? All those things, but he had to be humbled. I don't feel like Rose ever had to be humbled. She may have lost, which is a big difference. But I don't feel like Rose lost to someone that was inferior to her, and GSP did.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
And that's my not that he didn't learn from that, and it's a valuable lesson. I mean, GSP, if I'm putting a current, so to speak, Mount Rushmore, he'd be there for me. I think he's there, right? But
Do you think he's the goat of all goats?
no, No,
Because I do. I think he's the greatest of all time, of all greatest of all times.
I don't think so. And the only and here's a big reason why. He never went above or below his weight class. That's my reason.
Okay, fair point.
And it's the same reason why I don't put Nurmagomedov in that category. They were dominant in a weight class. To me, if you are going to be like a pound for pound, what are you doing outside of your current domination? And that's why I give a little bit higher credibility to Anderson Silva. That's why I put a higher credibility into Conor McGregor. That's why I'll put, in many ways, much more credibility to Randy Couture.
That's actually a great example. I think of all the names you listed, Randy Couture is the one I could agree with.
Right. Now, if John Jones does well in heavyweight, he takes that, right?
I disagree. The correct statement there is if John Jones stays out of jail.
What he does in his personal life, I don't necessarily attest to, but if John Jones does well in heavyweight, he is the best. Like, he didn't lose at light heavyweight. He got disqualified basically, but he didn't lose, right?
That's true.
He beat.
Right now, I'll bet you $100 John Jones never fights again, ever.
I mean, at this point, I'm just like paying you back with your own money. So, all right.
Right. I mean,
wait.
That's fair. I owe you $100 for the record. I owe you $100 for the cigar.
Never fights again. Never fights in the UFC or ever anything.
Fucking ever. Never fights again.
All right, I'll take it. He fights again. He fights again.
Deal.
I mean, I don't.
This is in perpetuity, dude. I'm not putting a time limit on it.
Just so you know.
I don't think he'll ever fight again.
I'll go find him and provoke a fight just to win this bet.
And that'll be worth $100, dude.
But you know, going back to our aspect, I think I think there's plenty of heavyweights he would beat. I don't know he couldn't beat Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is just too much. John Jones could not beat a wrestler that's a legitimate heavyweight.
Oh shit, man! That's a good scenario. I don't think John Jones could beat Brock Lesnar. I don't.
I think John Jones can beat Nagano because I think John Jones' jiu-jitsu and ground game is better than Nagano's. He just has to grab on at 250 some pounds. You grab onto a guy, they're gonna fall. They're gonna eventually come to the ground. Like Nagano, as far as I can tell, has like minimal ground game, minimal ground, even defense takedown. He just doesn't have to, because when if that guy even barely touches you, it's lights out. The guy is just, it's insane. It's like arcade game like power with what he's got. It's inhumane. I mean, not inhumane. It's superhuman.
Yeah. I would agree with you on that. I don't know that John Jones could beat Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I'd watch it. That I would buy.
Yeah.
That one I would buy.
And I still say to this day, BJ Penn is on my Mount Rushmore.
Really? Interesting.
Three different weight classes that guy has been a champion in.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. I'd agree with you.
I mean, not that, and I say that because, I mean, look, the guy he is a smaller guy, but one of the fastest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts of all time. Competed in Jiu-Jitsu, won a lot there, competed in MMA in multiple different weight classes, won championships in 3 different weight classes. Probably could have done all 3 weight classes in the UFC if he didn't have a spat with Dana White. Like the guy is like straight up to me, he's samurai. Like, okay, let's do it. Never. I don't feel that BJ Penn ever lost to someone that was inferior to him. I can't think of anyone, at least.
I think that's an astute point.
Right.
To be fair.
And,
yeah, that's fair.
And that's my biggest thing against GSP. He fucking lost against, what's that fucking dude's name that was from New Jersey?
Matt Serra.
Yes.
New York.
No. Whatever. Should never have lost to that guy. Never in a million years should he have lost to that guy. Should have destroyed him.
I'm laughing because you're correct. Surprise.
Yeah, I just go, okay. Nurmagomedov, again, I just go, reason why he's not one of my tops, didn't do anything outside of his 155 weight class. And still to this day, I go, my current number 1, it goes back to the first UFC person to ever win a championship in multiple weight classes is Randy Couture. And he did heavyweight twice.
And light heavyweight.
Yeah.
I was going to say before you said that's probably the best example you brought up. If I think about it, he has to be first. I really do believe that. Randy Couture, for sure.
Yeah, he's just won the epitome of a competitor and athlete. No ego in reality. Like, he just like, look, this is what I'm going to do, and stop me. Anderson Silva's up there for me, even though he didn't win a championship at another weight class. He still competed up, and probably could have. And I just got to say, like, from a mixed martial artist, why he's like, he just literally went in there in boxing against a former champion in boxing and won. Like, this is like 45.
Yeah. Old for the sport.
So, as a mixed martial artist, Anderson Silva's up there. He just did do the impossible in boxing, in my opinion. So you're up there. Past those two, and BJ Penn I put up there. I can't fill up my Rushmore. There's too many other things. Even though Conor McGregor has won in multiple weight classes, he hasn't been longevity in multiple weight classes, and it's not defended, as far as I can remember, either belt successful times.
No, man, and I'll be honest with you, especially given our prior conversation tonight, I can't get beyond his behavior.
I don't really care about the behavior, but I mean there's definitely an aspect, right? But he, business perspective, he's probably the best fighter that's turned business person than any of them. He's figured out how to cash in on and stuff. So, great.
I would agree with that.
Right. Some of the other things he does, I just going, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, there's no bet. I'm all about talking trash. You want to get into the psychological? Let's do it. But some of the thing, a lot of things he's done recently, I'm going, all right, why? Hey, I don't consider his last loss to Dustin Poirier a legitimate loss. Just like I don't consider Anderson Silva's losses to what's his name out of New York,
Chris Weidman.
Yeah, that second loss from Silva to Weidman, I don't consider that. You broke your leg in a freak accident, but it's, to me, that should be like a no contest in a way. Connor lost legitimately the second time to Dustin. That third time, that wasn't like, that's, to me, that's just not a loss. I want to see what happens next. With all that said, I don't think he beats Dustin Poirier at 155. Conor McGregor's a 145er every single day, and he doesn't lose at 145.
I'll go, dude. I'll put another 100 on this. I don't think Conor McGregor beats anybody ever again.
At 155?
Period. Pick a weight class. I don't give a shit. I think the money he got off that Mayweather fight, more power to him, right? Ruined his ability to succeed.
He did beat Cowboy, and Cowboy's no slouch. All right. So you say anybody. Do you think?
I don't think Conor McGregor ever wins a fight. Period. End of story. Ever fucking again.
Even if it was Nate Diaz?
I don't give a shit. I don't think he can beat me. I don't think he can beat me.
I'm pretty sure he could beat both of us at the same time.
But I don't know, man. I'll put money on it.
I think he could beat Nate Diaz because I never really thought Nate Diaz was that good. Nate Diaz just has a good chin, and all respects on that Nate Diaz isn't a warrior. Nick Diaz is far better than him. Right? And so I think a person that Conor McGregor can beat at 155 is Nate Diaz. Everyone else at 155, Conor he's too small at 155. His power does not, it's decent at 155. It is superior at 145. And his ego does not allow, he destroys Max Holloway at 145, I think. But he won't do it. He won't go back down to 145. It's his ego.
I don't, even if he can make it, I don't think he can beat it.
I mean, maybe not, but I think that, I mean, I've been saying it for years. Him moving to 155, too many of them at 155 are grapplers, and his grappling game is not strong enough for 155ers. They can get him up a cage, they can pick him up, they can put him to the ground, and he can't do anything about it because Conor McGregor walks around at like 160, maybe 170. These 155ers are walking around at 190. And when it comes to fight night, he doesn't have that 25 to 30 pounds that they have, and they can just destroy him. At 145, it's a pretty even fight. And I mean, Jose Aldo, it's a fucking nightmare for anyone. And Conor put him to sleep. There was, plenty like that. 155, Conor doesn't have the power because even if he has the power, like he did against Cowboy, was with his leg, which is different. Anyone that's a grappler destroys Conor McGregor at 155.
See, and I'll wrap this up and end with this. I don't think it's the weight class that affects Conor. I think this is a case study in setting your aim too low, or being so good that you reach your aim too early. You know, he peaked with beating Eddie Alvarez and getting 2 belts concurrent. And then his next fight was Mayweather. And since then, it's been just a straight descent in terms of fight record. Now, business-wise, money-wise, he's not been less successful. More power to you. But I don't think the dude ever wins a fight again. Because I don't think he wants to win the fight. There's no hunger there. There's no aim that he's trying to reach towards.
Well, and you very well may be correct. I think in some capacity, the biggest detriment to Conor has been and continues to be that John Kavanagh is not putting as much into him as what once happened, because John Kavanagh very much so does not like the antics of persona of Conor McGregor, which I will go back with. As much as I love that trash talk and that persona, like, okay, like, hey, I don't even remember the guy's name at this point, but like literally when the reporter asked Conor McGregor, hey, who up on that stage at 145? I think it was Jeremy Stevens that wound up going, me, I'm the hardest hitting 145 pounder out there. And Conor McGregor goes, who the fuck is that guy? Like that, the epitome, right? That's classic. That's a legitimate, like, who is that? Beyond that, as he started talking trash, he started getting a little bit outside of those pieces. And I think John Kavanagh and Conor started to have a little bit of falling out, which is in many ways, and I will go taking this back to a more current thing, because the ADC trials have just are on the way. And not John Kavanagh, John Danaher's Death Squad broke up, and was quite, as much as I like Gordon Ryan, I think is just an absolute beast. I mean, the guy is phenomenal, but his own brother went to the B team. I gotta question why. Your brother left you, and you're all in Austin. Though I gotta say that the one that's calling them B team, don't call yourself B team. Like, what are you? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're gonna be the losers. What are you doing? Come.
Yeah, what is your belief?
Exactly. It goes right back in the beliefs. I mean, look, I gotta say, regardless of what you want to say, like Gordon Ryan is an assassin out there when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And he only claims no gi, right? Dude does not lose in the weight class in which he competes in.
Yeah.
So, and let's say we believe half of his medical stuff, which I actually believe all of it, but let's say it's half. That means he's never been able to compete at full capability, which is another lesson for all of us out there. We're never going to be able to perform at our best when it's necessary to perform at our best. So you can. And if you've always been given 100%, 100% of the time, even those days when you weren't able to give 100%, it's still going to be better than those that never gave 100%.
Amen. Amen, man. I agree, 100%.
And with that, I'm out of whiskey. So, my friend, as always, and are you here next Wednesday?
I believe so.
All right.
What's next Wednesday?
I don't know.
The 17th. Yeah, I'm
All right.
ready.
Our good friend Ravi joins us for next Wednesday, so I might.
Is his sister showing up?
I mean, I'm going to ask her. I give both of them a hard time. I'm like, hey, Ravi, you didn't show up the other night. You know, your sister was ready to come on. Are you scared? It will be interesting because so I'll be in New York and I'm going to do one. I think I've got a decent setup for this kind of environment in New York, but we'll find out. But it would be interesting how three people split up. 2, it's easy on a TV, but 3, Google Meet likes to put like 1, 1, and 1. So it doesn't look as great. 2 people is pretty crisp. It's just half the screen. We'll find out. Maybe I can even get, since I'm in New York, maybe I can get both of them to be with me, and you'll be the only one on the screen. See what happens. All right, my friend. It's good as always. Glad we were able to take care of some audio issues, so Stoney will stop giving me a hard time, and see what happens from there.
It's always a distinct pleasure and honor. I'm happy to show up and discuss as necessary.
And I look forward to taking another $100 from you after Conor McGregor wins another fight. Because I'll be like, hey, that dude needs to go fight like, Diego Sanchez.
No. I bet he loses.
Where you lose to Diego Sanchez.
Oh, God.
That's great. All right, my friend. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.
Later, my friends.
Cheers.